listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy, and I'm a relationship coach who specializes in helping people who are cheating on their partners or engaging in something that they think counts as infidelity, deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. I offer confidential, non-judgmental coaching that is tailored to your specific needs. So if you want some help dealing with your infidelity situation, you can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. All right. Shame, blame, and self-loathing are topics that come up a lot in my coaching practice. Some of us are very practiced in the ways of self-flagellation and self-reproach. And some of us don't exactly hate ourselves, although some of us do, but we're still pretty good at beating ourselves up for certain things. And sometimes these kinds of behaviors or these kinds of thought patterns are associated with infidelity, but sometimes they aren't. So many of us have picked up the idea that we ought to be ashamed of our very existence, or that it's highly appropriate for us to chastise ourselves for very specific things we've done wrong. And when I say wrong, I'm using air quotes here, wrong in quotation marks. And if that sounds like your experience, I want you to know that you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. And moreover, it is possible to stop operating from the belief that you are irreparably flawed. So today we're going to talk about forgiving ourselves and what that means. Sometimes when we think we did something wrong in the past or think we failed to do something that we should have done, we beat ourselves up for our past actions or inactions because we think we have to hold ourselves accountable in order to make up for whatever we think we did wrong. But so often, holding ourselves accountable translates into mercilessly blaming and shaming ourselves over and over, long after our supposed misdeeds or failings took place. Sometimes we do this because we think we're deserving of shame. Sometimes we do this because we think we'll repeat our past actions or inactions if we stop thinking about them and about how bad we are for having done whatever it was we did or didn't do. Sometimes we keep on beating ourselves up because we've been in the habit of doing it for so long, we scarcely recognize it when it's happening. Sometimes we just don't know any other way to relate to ourselves. Here's the deal. Whatever you did in the past, whatever you think you should have done but failed to do, it's over. No matter how bad it really was or it really wasn't, it's finished. Revisiting the past over and over again in your thoughts won't allow you to change anything that's already happened. I know you may already know that intellectually, but do you believe it? Dwelling in your memories won't improve your life or anyone else's. Continuing to blame and shame yourself for whatever you did or didn't do won't absolve you of anything. You might think that if you engage in enough self-loathing, it will count as penance that will eventually lead to some sort of salvation, but it doesn't work that way. You can't make amends by dwelling in the past. What continuously revisiting the past will do, however, is detract from your ability to live in the present moment. It will rob you of your ability to fully engage with the life that's right here in front of you, waiting for you to inhabit it to the fullest extent of your ability. And one of the greatest ironies of holding yourself accountable is that it usually doesn't help you live any differently in the present than you did in the past. Focusing on what you've done wrong, again, wrong in quotation marks, sometimes let me start over. Focusing on what you've done wrong or supposedly wrong in the past, somewhat ironically makes it more likely that you will engage in more behaviors that you think are wrong in the future. Here's why. You can't shame yourself into making positive changes. living differently, living a life that you're proud of and feel good about, has to be fueled by self-acceptance and self-love. So forgive yourself for everything you think you've done wrong. Let the shame and blame go. It's just dead weight holding you back. Forgiving yourself means you stop fixating on what happened and you stop obsessing about the wrongness, the so-called wrongness of your actions, and what all of it means about you and your fundamental worth as a human being. You allow your focus to shift to the intentional, positive contributions that you want to make in your life and in the world now. You let your past mistakes, quote unquote, serve as clarifying incidents that help you become certain about who you are and who you want to be and how you want to live your life in the present and in the future, not incidents you replay obsessively over and over and over again in your memory. Remember, the way we experience the past is by thinking about it in the present. The way we experience the past is by thinking about it in the present. Whatever happened in the past, it's only happening in your mind right now. Now, if forgiving yourself seems hard, if thinking about your past actions or inactions in a different way seems difficult, it might be helpful to bear in mind that all humans make mistakes or so-called mistakes. And some of them are pretty colossal. Some of them have an impact on other people that is significant. Some of them have a significant impact on many other people. And, for better or worse, this is going to keep on happening until humans, all collectively achieve perfection, which I'm not too confident is anytime around the corner. And, under our human operating under the human condition as it is, if your plan was to get through life being a perfect human, you probably would have found failure one way or another. Therefore, embracing the complexity of your own nature, or put differently, your own inevitable state of imperfection, so-called imperfection, is one of the greatest things you could accomplish in your lifetime. So many of us go through life hoping that we're good and fearing that we're bad. And the disappointment that comes when we learn it's impossible to be unassailable sends us into a peculiar state of fear and loathing that isn't particularly conducive to anything good for us or for anyone else. Learning how to accept and love ourselves, not in spite of our flaws or our failings or our shadow side, but because of these parts of ourselves, takes courage. Claiming your right to be a person worthy of love and respect and belonging, even though you aren't perfect, does take strength. Embracing the fullness of your own humanity, not just the parts of you that are, approved of by others or fit for posting on Instagram or, the things that you want to tell all of your in-laws, requires bravery. But when you summon these qualities in yourself and when you do these things, you become a person who can right the wrongs or the so-called wrongs of the past by showing up in the world in a very different way in the present and in the future. And when you do this, you claim your capacity for transformation and growth and your ability to intentionally create a future of your own design, no matter what happened in the past. And this is the most amazing thing in the world, and nobody can do this for you but yourself. When you can do the kinds of things I've mentioned so far, when you can relate to yourself in the ways I'm talking about, you can make amends and reparations for your past actions in whatever ways you see fit. Amends can only be made in the present, after all, and they're best made when you're in a state of courageous self-acceptance rather than, for instance, in a state of self-loathing and desperately hoping for someone else's approval. And there are lots of ways to make amends if making amends is appropriate for your situation. It might be, or it might not be. Sometimes amends can be made directly, and sometimes they can't. And if they can't, that's okay because they don't necessarily need to be. whether or not it's appropriate or possible for you to ever look the person you want to apologize to in the eye and say, I'm sorry, may not really matter in the cosmic scheme of things. If it's possible and appropriate, making direct amends with someone in particular could well be a wonderful thing to do. But whether that makes sense for your situation or not, let your behavior in the present moment be your apology. It's so easy to forget, but it's so important to remember that all we really have is today. Believe me, I know myself all too well how easy it is to dwell in the past or to fixate on the future. But when we do this, we squander our power because all of our power exists in this moment, the present moment. So act from wisdom and compassion today. Take responsibility for yourself today. Doing that can be your apology. Doing those things can be your amends. This is how you can move your own life forward. And in doing so, this is how you can be a part of our collective evolution. Being able to forgive yourself for past bumbles and stumbles is important for many reasons. Some are quite immediate. Have you ever heard the expression, people are assholes because they suffer? I'm pretty sure I've said that on the podcast at least once before. When we're in pain, we act out in ways that tend to cause other people a lot of pain. Sometimes they say hurt people hurt people. Locking yourself in a prison of shame and blame for past missteps is a great way to perpetuate cycles of pain and suffering. You want to know how much fun you are to be around when you're in a state of self-perpetuated pain and suffering? I'm going to make a sweeping generalization here. If you're unable to deal with your own pain and shame, you probably aren't able to be fully present with the people in your life, and you probably aren't able to engage with them in the ways that you'd really like to. And what's more, when we aren't able to deal with our own pain, we're pretty likely to inflict it upon others, and often quite unconsciously. And that sucks. Even though we all do it out of, just not being able to do any better, it sucks. But the great news is that when you stop blaming and shaming yourself, when you can digest and release your own pain, your own emotional, garbage, manure, compost, what have you, when you can do this, you become able to interact with others in a way that contributes to peace and well-being rather than suffering. And I'm talking about everyone's peace and well-being or suffering here. Yours and everyone else's. Forgiving ourselves for whatever we think we've done wrong in the past helps us develop a better relationship with ourselves, which is the foundation upon which close, connected, and deep relationships with other people is based. If we're caught up in old stories about how bad we are or how bad we still are, we're clinging to a story of unworthiness that does not provide a good basis for building healthy relationships with other people. Now, here's a little bit more of what I mean by that. What if we are all deeply imperfect? What if we are all deeply flawed? And I use the words imperfect and flawed lightly because what does it really mean to be perfect or imperfect? What does it really mean to be flawed or not flawed? I'm not trying to suggest that anything goes and we might as well all go around stealing anything we want or killing anyone who pisses us off or never taking other people's wishes or preferences or needs into consideration. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I do want to suggest that there is a big difference between doing our best to live by our ideals and expecting ourselves to have our lives perfectly figured out every step of the way so that we never make anything that we think counts as a mistake. I also want to suggest that in addition to making a big difference in your life and the lives of people you interact with regularly, forgiving yourself has implications on a more collective cosmic scale. When you can forgive yourself for any past mishaps or missteps or mistakes, you provide an example to others that it's possible for them to do the same. We need as many positive examples of what it means to be compassionate towards ourselves as we can get. And by we, I mean humanity. I mean everyone living on this planet. So forgiving yourself isn't simply a matter of freeing up your own energy to more fully inhabit your own life. It's a matter of showing everyone else that this is possible too. I know that some of you may be hearing this and thinking, but I really hurt someone, or I really hurt a bunch of other people with my actions. And on the one hand, that might be true. But there are two things I want to say about that. And the first, as I've talked about in previous podcast episodes, is we don't directly cause other people's feelings, and other people don't directly cause our feelings. Our feelings come from our thoughts, and other people's feelings come from their thoughts. So although we are responsible for our actions, we can never control what other people think about our actions, and thus how other people feel as a result of thinking whatever they think about our actions. And this is just as true when we attempt to do nice things for other people or help other people, as it is when we fear we've done bad things or harmful things to other people. The second thing I want to say is that hurt, disappointment, and even devastation are inevitable parts of the human experience. Well, maybe I shouldn't say inevitable. I don't want to overstate my point here, but there are very, the so-called bad aspects of the human experience are very, very likely to be a part of our individual lives. And it's extremely likely that other people will at times be the occasion for our hurt and disappointment and devastation. And it's very, very likely that we too will at times be the occasion for other people's hurt and disappointment and devastation and what have you. And what if this is just part of the deal? What if this is just how it works when humans are together and interact with each other and do the best they can to get through life together? And what if none of this is an indication that anything is wrong in the fundamental sense of things? What if it's all just okay? The last thing I want to say is that sometimes people hear me talk about forgiveness and they say, well, what about accountability? And I say that accountability to ourselves and forgiveness of ourselves are not mutually exclusive and best work in tandem. If we've done something that we don't ever want to do again, we can recognize that and decide to behave differently in the future without making ourselves into monsters in the process. Forgiving yourself is not the same thing as giving yourself a free pass to abdicate any kind of responsibility. All right, everyone, whether you need to forgive yourself for something big or something small or a few things or a whole bunch of things, I want you to consider what it might be like to do so. I want you to consider what might be possible if you were to let the self-recrimination go. I want you to consider what's on the other side of that. If you're stuck in a loop of self-loathing, I promise that you can let that go and that life can be so much better when you're willing to accept yourself in a different way. And I understand that self-loathing and self-reproach can become deeply ingrained habits. So if all of this sounds great to you, but you have no idea how it could actually be possible for you, I can help you. Schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com, to learn more. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed today's episode, I hope you'll head on over to iTunes to rate and review the show. I wish you a wonderful day. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.